Hello there. Welcome into a Thursday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new Extra Sports 1300 app and are doing your listening through that. It's sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. Bit of a change of pace today. We are smack dab in the middle of football season, and you'll hear from Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph why this might be the biggest test so far for his defense that is playing nearly lights out. But I say it's a change of pace because today I was up at Ball Arena for Nuggets Media Day and had a chance to get the preseason thoughts of every member of the Denver Nuggets. And as you know, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of questions about this team. And there are questions about how to consume the product that this team puts out. And for that, a bit of news dropped this morning that Kroenke Sports Enterprises and Altitude is entering into a kind of agreement that we have seen more and more teams get into as this ever-changing landscape of live sports, changes. Today, they announced that they are launching their own streaming app. It is called Altitude Plus, and for $19.95 a month, you can watch every Nuggets and Avalanche game. And I would also say that you could probably watch anything that Altitude puts out, but obviously that's the big headline, is that you will get to watch the Avs and the Nuggets. There's a direct-to-consumer streaming way to watch the games. Now, they also announced that a limited portion of the schedule would be on a couple of channels up in Denver. I have not seen what that looks like here in Colorado Springs for the over-the-air, but it will be 9 News, which is NBC. So we'll wait to hear from the television stations down here on whether they're going to participate in that. But the direct-to-consumer streaming part of this is obviously the big story. Because now there's a way that you're not at the mercy of your cable or streaming provider. You can get this and get all the games you want. And so much of the last few years, along with these teams, the Avalanche and the Nuggets, competing and winning championships, is the fact that there are so many people that cannot watch. And you're missing a golden age of those two teams. I mean, those two teams each have an MVP on them. They each have a championship in the last couple of years. Both of them figure to be in the mix for a championship this year. And I'm very curious to see, we as a society, we love to complain. And I am no different than that. I'm probably worse than most people when it comes to complaining about things. I'm genuinely curious to see how this goes. Because I have heard in the past from different people that there is a little bit of a worry that sinking all the cost into this thing that they need to, in order to make it happen, they have to have the subscriptions, right? That's how this works. And I've heard in years past a little bit of worry on whether this kind of a platform is going to be embraced to the level it needs to be viable financially moving forward. Now, I would say the initial part of this, I think a lot of people are going to go out in October when this launches, and they're going to get it. Like, for instance, last night, non-Netflix subscriber, but I signed up for a new account just because I needed to see the Vince McMahon documentary. And it was well worth it. I don't know if I'm going to stick around with that platform after I was done watching the Vince McMahon documentary or the miniseries, kind of perused. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that a lot of this other stuff piques my interest. We'll see. Now, this streaming provider is a little bit different, right? Because it's very niche. It's very direct. It's not a show. Hey, I want to watch this particular show that I hear great things about, and I may not like everything else. This is, I'm a Nuggets fan, or I'm an Avs fan, or I'm both. I want the games. I don't think the issue for these platforms is getting the initial buy-in, because the newness of it, especially after the last few years, I think the rollout's probably going to go pretty well. But with the ability to cancel, are people going to keep up the streaming? I guess my question is, the people who have complained over the last few years that they haven't been able to watch the Avalanche and Nuggets, are they going to get in immediately and stay in and continue to pay nearly $20 a month to be able to see these teams? And I'm sure Kroenke Sports Enterprises did a lot of research and thought, you know what, we're going to get this, and it's the right time. You see other teams in other leagues try to do this, and you're like, how viable is this going to be? How much demand is there? But they just got to find a place to put their game so people can see it. So I'm curious, and I'll pose the question to you. I have had a provider that has allowed me to watch all the games for years now, so I'm okay. But if you're someone that has not been able to watch, is this going to be viable? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that everybody has a streaming device, everybody has the means. I'm just genuinely curious, because this is a little bit of a trust fall here. To say, all right, we've heard you, we're giving you that opportunity. Now it needs to be reciprocated. You got to buy this thing, you got to subscribe, and you got to stick with it. So I'm curious if you're somebody who has not been able to watch the Avs, the Nuggets, or both consistently, how much have you been craving this? And is this something that you're willing to pay $19.95 a month for? And you can let me know at 719-247-1313. But this is the way it's going. Either you do the direct to consumer. I saw New York do this. New York's bundling all its teams together. I think Philadelphia did this with Sixers games. It's a growing trend, but there's also this other arm of it, which is putting it on free television. I'm fascinated to see, and this is a little bit inside sports business, but these rights free fees, the cost keeps going up and up and up and up. And I heard JR Sport Brief talking about this with Andrew Brandt last night. Is there kind of a bubble? Is there a point where these rights fees are going to be so exorbitant that they're not going to pay at the national level, NFL, NBA, all that kind of stuff, but also on a regional level? And we're seeing more and more regional sports networks fold. And are we going to come back around to the way it used to be? I think Utah is doing this with the moving the Coyotes. I think their games are available on free television. Are we going to eventually get back to that where regional sports products are going to be on free TV? Just kind of a nerdy thing that I'm interested in. But after how many years has it been? 3, 4 of this ongoing dispute with one cable provider or another? Finally, Altitude has taken it into their own hands to go direct to you. Are you going to buy it? 719-247-1313. We'll start there, and then we'll get into hearing from some of the Nuggets players and, of course, Michael Malone. I think it starts with that. Malone, Booth, where is that relationship? Are they on the same page? You'll hear from both Michael Malone and Calvin Booth coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Week 4 begins tonight with New York and Dallas, which means it's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. Tonight, grab a Big Daddy, a Bud Light, or Michelob Ultra for $5.19, or catch the Fan Filler, 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. It is a football Thursday, but there's a lot of basketball to be discussed as the Denver Nuggets had their media day today. First time since they acquired Russell Westbrook. First time since Nikola Jokic played in the Olympics. Jamal Murray signed his extension. A lot going on with the Denver Nuggets, and we'll get back into that. But the story that dropped this morning, the announcement, was that Altitude was now going to offer a direct-to-consumer streaming product to help alleviate the issues that people have accessing Nuggets and Avalanche games. It's going to be called Altitude Plus. I saw some of the folks from Altitude and Kevin Demoff, who Stan Kroenke recently put to oversee everything. He was with the Rams, and now he kind of oversees everything in the Kroenke sports empire, say that they're hoping to have it ready for the Avs home opener, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks. But either way, October, you will be able to get it, and the cost is $19.95 a month. I'm curious if you are going to be a customer. Tom says, looks like I won't be seeing any Avs or Nuggets games. You could say it's a good thing, but I refuse to pay more and more freaking money to consume TV and sports. You could say I'm complaining all you want, but I'm not going to do it. Well, a couple things there. One, the complaining is from people who can't see the games. And I'm not saying that complaining is not justified, but that's the complaining I'm talking about, for people to say, hey, I have a television provider and I can't get the games. Now, maybe I wasn't clear, and I don't know if this is what you're alluding to, Tom, but I can be more clear for others. If you have a provider, like I do in Fubo, that already carries Altitude, you're good, right? If you have one of these, and I forget, I think it's DirecTV that has it, and Comcast is still the one they're not on. If you have a provider right now that has Altitude, you're good. You don't have to switch what you have. So again, I don't know, Tom, if that's what you're alluding to, but I wanted to clarify that for people out there. You don't have to switch providers and get this if you're already getting the Avs and the Nuggets. But Tom brings up a very good point. Let's say you don't have a provider that has Altitude, but you like your provider because you watch a variety of other things on it, and now you are being asked to pay $20 more a month in order to get the games. So is that a threshold you're willing to cross over? Either cutting out the provider you already have and just getting Altitude Plus because you watch the Avs and the Nuggets and the Mammoth and the Rapids, or are you willing to add this to what you already do? Because what Tom is saying is valid. And the other part of me wondering whether we're going to come full circle when it comes to watching sports, and we're going to end up in a place where all of these teams are just on free television. But the other part of it, with all the rights fees going up and up and up, where's that cost being passed down to? You. Right? It's the way this works. So if you don't have Altitude right now, and this option is now available to you, are you going to add it? to what you already pay. Because I get it. I used to have just straight up like Dish, right? And I was paying a certain amount, and then I cut the cord thinking I'd be saving a lot of money, and then what happens? Well, I got to get ESPN Plus. Got to watch the USL Championship. Got to watch NHL games. And I need Fubo for most of my watching, but I like HBO. So I'm going to do that. And I want to watch the Vince McMahon documentary. So I'm going to get Netflix. And all of a sudden, cord cutting was supposed to be a cost saving measure. Remember that? It was a cost saving measure. It was cheaper. And now it's not. It's almost like these very large, lucrative companies know what they're doing and know how to get the money they require out of you. So that's why I say it's a bit of a trust fall that any of these sports entities are doing that have been embroiled in these regional sports network problems. They have to charge. They have costs. But are you willing to a la carte 5 or 6 different streaming platforms when you were supposed to be saving money doing that? And now you're not. So I'll continue to take your thoughts on that. 719-247-1313. Now into the business of getting the Nuggets back to an NBA Finals. The biggest story of this offseason was, and everything else stemmed from it, the Jamal Murray extension, Aaron Gordon's extension in the future, losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, everything that transpired with the Nuggets this offseason, even adding Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook, stemmed from, and I don't know that everything was connected, but the main question was Michael Malone, Calvin Booth seem to have a difference of opinion when it comes to how to keep this championship window open. Calvin Booth likes the draft, likes the younger guys, likes to develop. And again, today, when I was up at Ball Arena, he reiterated that he thinks you can do both. You can compete to win a title and develop young talent. But is Michael Malone on board with that? Is he willing to play these young guys, develop them to fulfill the vision that Calvin Booth has? Is this organization in lockstep? Here was Michael Malone on that today.
Calvin and I should always agree. If we're always agreeing, then we're not really accomplishing what we need to accomplish. But through those disagreements and through those conversations, you come to a greater good. And this is a reality. I mean, like you look across the NBA landscape, teams are letting great players walk because they don't want to approach that really dirty word of second apron. And as a coach, I have to educate myself because I put blinders on. How do we win the game tonight? But I have to give respect to Calvin. I have to give respect to Josh and understand that it's more than just tonight. It's also a much bigger perspective on how we're going to be set up for success, not just tonight and this season, but for down the road.
Apologize. The audio I got wasn't great, but a lot of the other Nuggets audio I have for you today comes straight from the Denver Nuggets. But essentially what Michael Malone is saying there is, look, I don't have to agree. I shouldn't just be a yes man for Calvin Booth. The checks and balances of an organization. The good organizations are ultimately in lockstep. But before they get to that place, there is room for discussion. There is room for disagreement. And Michael Malone's saying, we're not getting better as an organization if I'm not challenging some of Calvin Booth's notions and vice versa. But I also got the sense, hearing from Michael Malone today, that he has come to some kind of a realization that the Nuggets aren't unique in this regard. He said so many teams are losing quality players because of this second apron. Now, we can discuss and argue whether the Nuggets, especially based around Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, whether they should have been willing to go into the second apron. But it's not that the Nuggets are the only team. And I think Michael Malone, I still get the sense that he doesn't love this idea. He wants, as a coach, the absolute best roster he can get and the most capable roster he can get in order to win games, because that's his job. But I think over the summer, he realized that in a lot of ways, he's fighting a losing battle. The owners are telling their teams, with few exceptions, Boston being one, although Wick Grossbeck is turning around and selling the team, so it's somebody else that's going to have to pay the second luxury tax bill. But owners are telling their organizations, we're not going to spend past this second apron. And Michael Malone has got to deal with that. I think he has no choice in the matter. And then you find this is where Russell Westbrook comes in. This is where Dario Saric comes in, both veteran players that should satisfy some of what Michael Malone's thought process is, having more reliable players off the bench and it not being all young guys. I feel like Westbrook and Saric are a little bit of a compromise between Calvin Booth's vision and direction and Michael Malone, what he wants. But I think you just have a coach in Michael Malone that's like, this is the way it's got to be. I got to lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. However, I think the most positive thing to come out of this, because I wondered a little bit. When Pope was allowed to walk, I looked at the next contract, big contract that was going to be handed out, and I wondered, is Aaron Gordon potentially next? Are they going to allow Aaron Gordon to walk? Well, Calvin Booth today and Aaron Gordon both indicated that things are moving in the right direction and there is optimism that a deal will get done. Now, season is long. Negotiations are long. But it does seem like Aaron Gordon, and it makes sense that it might be this way. I get the sense that Aaron Gordon is more indispensable, or is indispensable. Like, he's one of those players like Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, that are just, there's no other way to go about it. You can't just let a guy like that walk. They truly, or Calvin Booth, I'll say, truly believes that when you look at what Christian Braun does in a limited basis, that you can expand his role and he will be able to maintain that level of play, if not step up from what he's been able to do. And that's one of the big questions about this team. But when it comes to Aaron Gordon, perhaps the Nuggets don't feel like there's somebody that can immediately fill in. So it does appear that whatever financial repercussions may come of it, that Calvin Booth and the Nuggets want to get a deal done with Aaron Gordon. But I would still imagine that Aaron Gordon is not going to receive the same contract that Jamal Murray does. I think that there is somewhat of an expectation from the Nuggets, and this is just me theorizing, that Aaron Gordon will take maybe slightly below market value to stay a part of this team. But that'll be something to watch moving forward. But I do think that with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, there was always this feeling of, yeah, he's probably not coming back, like it or not. With Aaron Gordon, it was a different feel. More like a Jamal Murray, like we're going to get this done type feeling. And we'll see if they ultimately can. But he's under contract this year. So is Jamal Murray. So is Nikola Jokic. Everybody's under contract for this year. 719-247-1313. Speaking of contract extensions, you'll hear from Jamal Murray, his thoughts on staying with the Nuggets for the foreseeable future. You'll also hear from Russell Westbrook. What does he see his role on this Nuggets team being? And I think that there is part of his role that we haven't talked about a lot, and it has to do with the other guy I just mentioned. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC is pushing for home field advantage in the playoffs, and they would love your support this Saturday night at Widener Field against Loudoun United. Be there at 5 p.m. to get a limited edition backpack or fanny pack provided by Diversus Health. And after the match, stick around for a fun fireworks show. It all goes down this Saturday, 5 p.m. at Widener Field. Get your tickets now at switchbacksfc.com. Couple of texts. Nuggets opening up their season in a way, not the regular season, but training camp with their media day today. Altitude announcing that they are now going to offer a direct-to-consumer streaming platform for the Avs and the Nuggets. It will cost $19.95 a month, and we've been discussing whether you're going to be a customer of it. If you've been without the Nuggets and Avalanche. Is this just what you've been looking for? Or are you looking at it and saying, like Tom is, and bringing up extremely valid points, that this is ultimately another streaming service that you have to add? And Tom's saying, I love the Avs and the Nuggets, but I got a ton of other streaming platforms. And I got a family. And I totally understand that. Like, look, watching the Avs and the Nuggets, it's my job. So the cost of television is a top priority for me. There are people who are fans, and it may not be as high of a priority over what their kids watch or what their significant other watches or even their other entertainment interests. I am a unique blend of it's my job to watch them, and also I watch very little else. An occasional documentary, whatever movie my kids want to watch, and Office and Seinfeld reruns. And sports. That's it. I have very narrow interests. So, if we ever hang out sometime, if you don't watch one of those things, I'm going to be the worst person to hang out with. I know nothing else. I didn't even watch the new. I love the first Game of Thrones. I haven't seen a single episode of the new one. So, I get it. In a time where everything's more expensive, it's valid, and that's why I asked the question. As far as the Nuggets as a basketball team are concerned, Steve G says it would be different if the Nuggets had 3 go-to guys like Golden State and then had the young players in the game for experience. I think Malone is hard-headed. You have to give the young players game experience. And I think you're right about all of that. And I think that the positive thing, maybe he's kicking and screaming on all of this, but ultimately I got the sense that he understands it. And he's just going to have to work within this framework. But he talked about Christian Brown today, who's not going to be handed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's spot. He was very quick to point that out, to the point of belaboring the point perhaps. But he also said Julian Strawther is going to play with the starters, play with the second unit, and he's going to figure out who fits the other 4 guys, Porter, Gordon, Jokic, and Murray, best. I still think that inevitably is Christian Brown. Because as much as I think that losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will hurt the Nuggets to some degree, the only guy that at least, should I call him a poor man's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, brings some of the same skill sets is Christian Brown. Do the Nuggets really need, and if I could pick which skill set they need most from what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gave them, it would be the defensive side of things. And with Julian Strawther, for health reasons or for Michael Malone not wanting to play him reasons, I don't know what kind of a defender Julian Strawther is. I understand the thought process from Calvin Booth. I just, it needs to be pointed out that I don't think Christian Braun in increased minutes, increased role will be quite as good as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was. Therefore, the Nuggets have taken a bit of a hit in terms of how good they are. But I've also, alongside that, acknowledged that if Jamal Murray and Michael Porter do what we have been asking them to do in terms of consistency, in terms of their level of play from one round of the playoffs to another, that's more important. If Jamal Murray is the Jamal Murray of 2 years ago, if Michael Porter can sustain his level of play from round 1 to round 2 to round 3, then I think it makes replacing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope with Christian Braun easier. It makes it work better. Jamal Murray signing the extension, much discussed. Calvin Booth acknowledged that some people, yours truly, made a big deal about the timing of it, how long it took. He contends that it was just how long a negotiation takes. And he said he was happy to have Jamal Murray. Here's Jamal Murray, who is coming off of a difficult summer, on whether he had any doubts that an extension would get done.
Pretty confident, man. Pretty confident. I'm happy to be here.
Not to nitpick. Could use a little bit more. Right? And one thing that the Nuggets have in their 2 stars are 2 guys that absolutely hate talking to the media. They do. They both do. But the difference is, one, Nikola Jokic plays ball a little bit more, and you'll hear from Jokic coming up. And Jamal Murray doesn't. And also, I will say that even if you don't like to speak to the media, if this is your first opportunity after a difficult Olympics and all this talk about whether the Nuggets should actually give you the extension, and the last time Nuggets fans saw Jamal Murray on the court, I think it would be ideal if he gave a little bit more than that answer. I get it. You don't want to be phony. You don't want to be fake. But it's like, could use a little bit more. The Q rating of Jamal Murray is not at the highest it's always been. Maybe reaching out to the fan base and being like, I'm thrilled to be here. Always wanted to be here. You know, the normal things that you hear, and Jamal Murray just today wasn't having it. But he is a Nugget, and I have no doubt that he is happy to be in Denver, that he wants to be in Denver. It'd just be nice on a day like today, which is what this is for, to elaborate a little bit more. But Jamal Murray is going to be who Jamal Murray is. The point guard that I think is the most intriguing, just because of newness, if nothing else, is Russell Westbrook. And he was in good spirits. Him and DeAndre Jordan were joking around. This was, you could argue that this is the most accomplished NBA player that the Nuggets have ever signed in free agency, have ever acquired. Right? The resume, you remember a few years ago, they got Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap was a guy that played in a lot of playoff games. That was a huge deal. Remember, they had a marching band and they had the press conference at a high school, and because he had ties to the Denver community, but they made a huge deal of that because Denver just doesn't get free agents. And I know the circumstances of them acquiring Russell Westbrook. This is a buyout guy from the Clippers or Wizards or wherever, Charlotte, wherever he was bought out from. But Russell Westbrook, a lot of the intrigue around him, which is, I think, turned into people overrating maybe the player he is at this stage of his career. But I understand it because the Nuggets haven't brought in a player with the accomplishments, with the resume that Russell Westbrook has. And look, Laker fans, Clipper fans, they were like this too when Russell Westbrook came in, because he's a big name. He's a well-accomplished player, and it's easy to get excited and maybe to the point of overrating him a bit. But I get it. Here's Russell Westbrook on what he thinks his role will be with the Denver Nuggets.
Just compete, play hard, lead. Have many traits, and leadership is probably the one I really enjoy doing most on and off the floor. And leadership is something that can transpire through a locker room, through a culture, through an organization, and on the floor. That's primarily where I will lean into more.
When Russell Westbrook talks about leadership, I was thinking today, listening to him speak, I thought back to that post after they got bounced from the playoffs, and Michael Malone and Calvin Booth kind of challenging Jamal Murray, right? Figuring out, and Calvin Booth, I think, said it. I can't directly quote him, but he was talking about picking other guys' brains in terms of, staying on the court, avoiding injury, keeping your level of play consistent, all those kind of things. You look at a Russell Westbrook and you think of Peyton Watson, who idolizes the guy, right? Both UCLA, both Southern California. Nobody's happier to have Russell Westbrook in Denver than Peyton Watson. But you think of Watson, you think of Strother, you think of Deron Holmes, who, of course, is out for the year with an injury, Christian Brown a little bit. Isn't some of what Russell Westbrook brings to the table aimed at Jamal Murray? Not to replace him. Those were some of the crazier takes, that the Nuggets would somehow be a better starting five if Russell Westbrook and Jokic play together instead of Jamal. I'm not going that far. Jamal Murray's the superior player. Absolutely. But this is a guy that has played a long time in the league, been incredibly productive. I don't remember a lot of long DL stints for Russell Westbrook. I wonder if part of acquiring him was based on perhaps the internal conversation that the organization has been having about Jamal Murray and what they'd see, like to see from him. Even a guy that is well established in the league, has won a title, given the question marks with Jamal Murray, I have to think that at least factored into the equation a little bit. Sure, it's a more reliable bench. Sure, it is the young guys mentoring them. But the example that Russell Westbrook sets, you don't have to be within your first 3 years in the league to take something from it. All the best athletes are continuing to learn, taking stuff from other people, no matter how accomplished they are or how long they've been in the league. I think part of Russell Westbrook being in Denver is about Jamal Murray. Maybe it's a small part. Maybe it's, if we're splitting it up on the pie chart, it's 25%. I don't know. But I think him being a part of this team, I think the organization is hoping at some level that Jamal Murray, while Russell Westbrook doesn't need to put his arm around Jamal and coach him up, maybe Jamal picks up a thing or two to be more consistent, to avoid injury, conditioning level, all that kind of stuff. Because Russell Westbrook, he's an Energizer bunny, right? He's running. He doesn't stop. And that's the question you have about Jamal Murray. 719-247-1313. What role you think Russell Westbrook will play? How productive do you think that he is? Do you think that this Nuggets bench is greatly improved? I think it is improved. Take your thoughts on that. By the way, now that Media Day has rolled around and you realize that the basketball season is starting up, might be time to lay down that futures bet. Denver right now plus 800 to win it all this year on Circa Sports Colorado, my new favorite sports betting app. And a big reason why I'm using it now is because Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on large market bets like futures, golf tournaments, especially compared to other books. And they have the lowest hold on those futures in other big markets. They don't limit players based on their winnings. Other sports books do. Essentially, what they're striving to do is recreate in app form the experience the best they can of what you get when you go out to Vegas at Circa Resort and Casino. They want to bring that into the app, make it the best sports betting experience you can have. And they're so confident that they've done a good job of it that they want you to shop around. Don't necessarily delete the app that you're already using and then download Circa Sports Colorado. Download Circa Sports Colorado app and compare. That's how confident they are. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Coming up next, you'll hear from the man of the hour with the Denver Broncos. No, not Bo Nix. It's Vance. What kind of a challenge does Aaron Rodgers present? That's next. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Thursday. Ryan Kaufman with you. A reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis. All you need to do is follow us on at least one social media platform, and you can pick pretty much any of them. Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, the handle, all the same, @XTRA Sports 1300. Coming up on Sunday, the Denver Broncos look to parlay quite the performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into their second win of the season as they take on the quarterback that they almost had all those years ago, Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Bo Nix is always going to be the story with the Denver Broncos. But what Vance Joseph has this defense doing is certainly worth discussing, almost to the level that we discussed Bo Nix. Not quite to that level, but it's close. Of course, the Broncos defense that has been playing so well lost a member of it yesterday when it was announced that Alex Singleton would miss the rest of the season with the torn ACL. Here's Vance Joseph on the loss of one of his inside backers.
Every year something is going to happen, right? I didn't know what was going to happen, but I'm not, shook or surprised that we lost a good player. We have guys in that room that's been practicing and playing for us that we handpicked that we have to play with. And, when you lose a player like Alex, you have to, everyone has to do more. I have to be better on game day, and the safety's got to be better and Pat's got to be better, so it's a group effort to kind of cover what he gave us.
And obviously what he gives you is tackling. So that's what you immediately look to. Are there guys that can tackle the ball carrier, especially these two running backs that the New York Jets boast? But I said it, and I'm not trying to be callous or anything, and I don't think Vance Joseph is trying to be callous about the whole thing. But look, there are positions on a football team that are more vital, that you have the right guy in that position than others. And the position that Alex Singleton plays is a little bit down on that list. I think if you're a Broncos fan, and I'm trying to be positive here, you don't need to worry that much, as opposed to them losing Zach Allen or a pass rusher. I mean, look, Baron Browning plays a more important position, and the Broncos accounted for his loss pretty well on Sunday. I think they can do the same with Alex Singleton. I really do. And that's not to diminish him as a player. That's just the reality when you put together a hierarchy of these positions on the defense. There are positions that are more important. And so I think of the injury. I certainly would have more confidence in the Broncos being able to compensate for the loss of Alex Singleton than I would be Mike McGlinchey or Baron Browning, and the Broncos did quite well replacing them, albeit for one Sunday. Now, as far as the Broncos defense is concerned, the big number that sticks out from Sunday is 7, as in 7 sacks of Baker Mayfield. Here's Vance Joseph on his sack-happy defense.
I've always said that our rushers were underrated, and once we get a lead and having JFM inside pushing the pocket with Zach, you'll see Coop and those guys really come alive, and I believe that. They're a lot better than people think they are. But, it comes with having a lead. It comes with, getting people down and getting multiple chances to rush the passer. Those guys will play well.
And that's part of what this season is about, because the Broncos one day are not going to be able to afford Browning and Cooper and Ellis and And the list goes on. They can't keep all of them. And part of this season as an evaluation process of who you're going to commit to moving forward, who's going to be key members of this team, and what are you going to spend money on in free agency. If there is a pass rusher available, I promise you that's going to be near the top of the Broncos list. Because that's a position after quarterback that you could throw into the mix with weapons in the passing game and linemen. Tackles specifically. Guy have a pass rusher. So if the Broncos are going to spend some of that Russell Wilson quiche this offseason, I'd probably put pass rusher at the top of it. But as the season progresses, some of these guys might show through. Jonathan Cooper's been terrific. Maybe he's the guy. He's the guy that you invest in and say, all right, we got ourselves a guy in Jonathan Cooper. But again, this Broncos defense is based on bringing numbers, blitzing. They blitz over 60% of the time. And that's something that, at least it sounds to me like Vance Joseph is a little hesitant doing, given the quarterback he is going up against.
I mean, a quarterback is obviously special. He's a Hall of Fame player. He's played a long time. I think I saw a stat yesterday from one of our coaches. His last 2 years of sacks have only been with a four-man rush and coverage, right? So pressure don't bother this guy. He's going to see it, right? He's seen every kind of pressure you can give him. So, obviously when you're playing against a guy like this, you have to be in his head a little bit as far as knowing what he sees, and knowing what you're showing him and taking it away.
He called it a cat and mouse game. You could call it chess. Call it what you want. Vance Joseph matching wits with Aaron Rodgers this Sunday because, yes, we know better than anybody who runs that offense in New York. It's Aaron Rodgers. This is not Vance Joseph against Nathaniel Hackett. It's Vance Joseph against Aaron Rodgers. Last Sunday, they faced a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who, in the time he was in Tampa, since he's joined Tampa, has been one of the better quarterbacks against the blitz, and the Broncos still said, we're going to be who we are. And I still expect them to do that to a degree, but you can't, you got to be smart about it. And there's Vance Joseph saying the way you get to Aaron Rodgers is coverage sacks, essentially. Either you get the pressure with the four-man front, but part of what helps you get pressure with the four-man front is to get the quarterback to hold the ball longer. And I think, and Vance Joseph talked about this today, a lot of the credit to the number of sacks the Broncos had on Sunday is due to the back end of the defense, Pat Surtain and Riley Moss. So right now, the number is 62% of the time the Broncos are blitzing. We'll see if that number goes down a little bit. And see if the Broncos drop more guys back into coverage and hope that that coverage keeps the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands. This is I would say, across the board, this is the biggest test that the Broncos have faced in the early season. They face two defenses that are better in terms of their ranking than the Jets. But Seattle on the offensive side and Pittsburgh on the offensive side did not present the challenges that the Jets do. So you factor in both sides of the football, and this is the most difficult test that the Broncos have faced. And the line in Vegas indicates that the folks out there think that this is going to be light work, perhaps, for the New York Jets. And we'll see. And we'll get on both sides of the football. We'll get a better sense of how far this Broncos team has come, what's real, what's not, going up against this defense and this quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers, it feels a little bit different playing Aaron Rodgers this week than last week. Because going into the New England game, he wasn't moving around as well. And then against New England, and look, there are two teams on the field, and you can look at New England and say they didn't put the pressure that they needed to on Aaron Rodgers. So no wonder he moved the ball well and moved around well. He wasn't under any pressure. You could say that. But he looked a lot different against New England than he did the previous 2 weeks. And then you throw in a pretty good running back duo that the Jets have. This is a good football team. I think Buffalo has to right now be looked at as the biggest threat to Kansas City in the AFC. They look that right now. I'm not out on Baltimore yet. In Cincinnati, they've dug themselves a hole that they need to climb out of, and that defense, I have major questions about it. You have Tua on IR. Like after Baltimore and Buffalo, Houston, New York, Pittsburgh, there's a group there, but New York's a good team. They're better than, I think, Tampa Bay, definitely better than Seattle. I think they're right there with Pittsburgh, and maybe a little bit better than Pittsburgh at this point. See how they fare on Sunday. Much more interested, obviously, in how Bo Nix goes up against the Jets defense, but Vance Joseph matching wits with Aaron Rodgers. Be interested to see how that goes, because right now, Vance Joseph, if there's a zone for defensive play calling, Vance Joseph is in it right now. He has called 3 really good games, and really there's just one quarter where you looked at the Broncos defense and say they're just not up to it. And that's when Seattle pounded Kenneth Walker at them for the entirety of the third quarter. Other than that, this defense has been really good, but they'll be tested against Aaron Rodgers, no doubt about it. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts, your prognostications for Sunday. Do the Broncos come back down to earth a little bit? I think so, but that doesn't mean that some of what they did in Tampa can't be done against New York. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, how about a couple of Switchbacks tickets for your trouble? Give them away next. Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC is pushing for home field advantage in the playoffs, and they would very much like to have your support this Saturday as they take on Loudoun United. Gates open at 5, and you can get a limited edition backpack or fanny pack provided by Diversus Health if you're there at 5. And then after the Switchbacks take on Loudoun United, experience a fun fireworks show after the match. I want to help you help the Switchbacks by giving away a pair of tickets to Saturday evening's contest. If you'd like to go, be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. That's Switchbacks and your name to 719-247-1313. Nikola Jokic showed up today at Nuggets Media Day, still with the facial hair that he was rocking during the Olympics. And if you're a big fan of it, you will be disappointed to hear that Nikola Jokic gave a strong indication that it would be shaved by the time the season began. But Jokic was in, shall we say, mid-season form when asked about the difference going into his 10th season at Media Day.
Every year is the same thing, and I don't know why we're doing it every year. Everything is the same, completely the same thing. So,
again, I go back to Jamal Murray. They're both like this when it comes to meeting with the media and all of these other obligations that come along with being a professional athlete. And we chuckle and we let it go because he's the best player in the world. And that's why I said, sometimes you have to read the room and understand where you are, and maybe giving the people a little bit more, if you're Jamal Murray, might be a good idea. With Nikola Jokic, I don't know. He may get up there and be able to call Nuggets fans fair weather, and Nuggets fans will be like, you know what? I got to do better. I got to be better. That's being a 3-time MVP and the best player in the world. Jokic was asked about 2 of his point guards. First, Jamal Murray, on how pleased he is that he'll be playing with him for the foreseeable future.
he's my partner in crime, and we played through a lot, and we had some big wins, some big losses, and I was happy that he stayed with us, and hopefully we're gonna do some more history together. Let's say it like that.
I don't think Nikola Jokic gets involved in front office decisions. In fact, Calvin Booth alluded to that today, because there's been a lot made about how Nikola Jokic maybe gave his blessing or campaigned for the Nuggets to acquire Russell Westbrook. Could somebody have hit up Nikola Jokic and be like, hey, what do you think about Russell Westbrook? And he could have been like, I like the guy. That could have been the end of it, and it turns into Nikola Jokic politicked and campaigned and pounded the desk for Russell Westbrook. Right? You know how things get carried away. But you can tell when there is a player that Nikola Jokic values highly and is integral to what he believes will be the success of the Denver Nuggets. Even if he doesn't sit down and have, a conversation and play amateur GM like LeBron James does, there are certainly players that you could tell that Nikola Jokic very much wants to make sure are Nuggets for as long as possible. And one of those is Jamal Murray. But going back to his comments about cloning himself at the end of that Timberwolves series, I think he is with Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, and he wants, and everybody's in this. It's just, does Jamal Murray need to be challenged, or Does he have a valid excuse for not being up to his 2022 level in that Minnesota Timberwolves series? We could debate all of that, but everybody knows that in order for the Denver Nuggets to be champions again, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray have to be at the level they were a couple of years ago, even more so, given that there has been some sapping of talent from the roster over the last couple of years. You could tell when he talks about Jamal Murray that he values him as a teammate, knows how important he is. And I'm sure he doesn't have to say anything to Calvin Booth and the Denver Nuggets for them to understand that you would have some explaining to do if you were not to re-up Jamal Murray. And that's the best kind of influence you have over an organization, an unspoken influence. Like we see so many professional athletes that have to leak things to the press or make cryptic comments or send out emoji-filled tweets to get their point across. The best influence is just they know me well enough to know this is who I want alongside me. And I don't have to say it, and I don't have to get into all this stuff. And I think Nikola Jokic has that kind of a influence over the organization, as he should, as he deserves. How about the other guy, Russell Westbrook? Nikola Jokic was asked about their relationship.
I mean, of course, we didn't have a good relationship on the court. We were fighting a lot and talking back and forth. But I know who he is a little bit outside of the court. So great teammate, vocal leadership, the guy who want to listen, the guy who want to follow in the gym. So I think he's a great player for us, and I think he's going to bring us all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. Now, I am curious, even though I'm not expecting the world of a lineup with Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic on the floor at the same time, even because I know what Russell Westbrook is at this point in his career. Still fascinated to see it. Russell Westbrook was asked today about the triple doubles. Both of them are known as kind of the kings of the triple doubles, and Russell Westbrook was like, we both just want to win. Which is what you want to hear, but it's also, you kind of think back to some of the claims that have been levied against both of those guys in terms of their triple doubles and what the motivation was and how motivated they were to stuff the stat sheet. And Russell Westbrook's like, yeah, we don't really care about those. But I would very much like to see those two share a court together, because honestly, I'm fascinated to see anybody play with Nikola Jokic. Not that I'm rooting for it, but I would very much like to find one player before Nikola Jokic is done where I say, that guy doesn't really fit with Nikola Jokic, because I haven't found that guy yet. I think Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic on the court together at the same time could be a lot of fun. It's not going to be the combination that leads them to another title. And this bench unit, which is where Russell Westbrook's going to be, is interesting. Because you have Watson, you have Westbrook, you probably have Strawther. Michael Malone threw Julian Strawther into the mix with Christian Brown as taking over for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but I think the plan is Brown, and as long as he keeps working, right, You want to make a competition out of everything. As long as Christian Brown holds up his end of the bargain, I think he'll be in that role. So you have Westbrook, you have Strother, and then you add Dario Saric, who I was very impressed today listening to Dario Saric. Sharp guy. Talked about all the different roles that he thinks he'll play, and it's why they brought him in. His versatility. Play inside, play outside, be a facilitator, hit shots. It's not something that you want to necessarily put on anybody because it's been, the Nuggets really haven't found that guy. And the expectation level with even putting the name Jokic into any description for anybody else, I think is too much. But even Dario Saric and some of the other guys kind of acknowledge, like, the Nuggets are trying to replicate what they do with Nikola Jokic with the second unit and give Nikola Jokic the ability to rest more. And I will always say that they took too long to get the right guy for this role, and they didn't have him for long enough. It was DeMarcus Cousins. I had been on that for a couple of years before he actually arrived in Denver, and I was bummed that he left because I thought he was the closest thing. He was the closest thing that I could find that was realistic. Somebody that the Nuggets could get that could give them some of that. Dario Saric is interesting, though. And it's not like you're asking the world of this guy. If you could do a little bit, just allow them, not even do what Nikola Jokic does, but just allow the Denver Nuggets to function while Nikola Jokic is off the court. That is a massive win for this team. A massive win. I don't think that's a high bar for Dario Saric to clear. And I think he understands that he could be that, and I think the Nuggets understand. And the question is, I think their bench is better. I think their starting five is a little bit worse. How does that all come out into the wash? If the bench is better and Murray and Jokic can get more rest, that makes the Denver Nuggets a better team, even if that bench unit is not going to be relied upon and it's going to be greatly shortened come playoff time. Not out on the Denver Nuggets. I think you have to give the Oklahoma City Thunder a hard look, as well as Minnesota. But the Nuggets are going to be right there. And I've kind of gone back and forth. We may be a year early on Oklahoma City being a champion. But that's the group. I think Dallas, I think they take a step back, and certainly I don't see anybody else in the West that I think takes a step enough forward to be mentioned with Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and Denver. The most important thing is making sure that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are what they were in 2022 by any means necessary. And then all of these other things we can worry about. 719-247-1313. Getting a little Nuggets, a lot of Nuggets talk today with Media Day, and then they'll go off to Abu Dhabi, and we'll see them back in a few weeks. Did you know that you can now use your own body's healing properties? Don't worry, I am paid to speak for a living. To revitalize your achy joints and get you real lasting pain relief. It's true. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, this is something you need to check out. Everybody's talking about this. And the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are experts in these amazing treatments. People rave about the results because they get back to doing the stuff they love without pain and without using drugs, surgery, and there's no downtime. Also associated with treatments at QC Kinetics. So call now, take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988, 719-347-1988, QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, not Christmas, fall. And we want to help you make the most of this season with a $1,000 fall fund. We'll pick 5 winners to each take home $1,000 to spend on whatever your idea of fun is this fall. Head to extrasports1300.com to enter for your chance to win the $1,000 fall fund, sponsored locally by Hope Online Learning Academy. Congrats to Tom. Another Tom has emerged in our midst, winning the tickets to see the Switchbacks take on Loudoun United on Saturday. Steve G says it would be so nice if the Nuggets' talent level didn't fall off the table when either Jokic or Murray aren't in the game. That's the dream. Being really real, it's always going to fall off. It's always going to fall off. And I'm not just talking about, hey, nobody's bench is as good as their starters. Like that's true. But when you have the best player in the world, it's going to fall off more. That's just a fact of life with Nikola Jokic. But you look at this bench unit and they struggle. I mean, it's not just, we acknowledge that they're not going to be as good without Nikola Jokic on the floor, but like there are times where the bench unit over the last couple years just can't even like function. And it's like inevitable that the opposing team goes on a run, and that's got to stop. And your best way to make it stop is to be able to play the same way with some personnel that can carry things for a little bit. Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric aren't as good as Bruce Brown. Okay, Bruce Brown being available for the amount of money the Nuggets got him for, his production was like a unicorn. Okay, but I think when you compare this bench unit to last year's, I think it's better, and I think it gives them the opportunity to not completely throw out everything they do with their starting 5 just to try and cobble together a few minutes of rest for Nikola Jokic. But the young guys got play, and it may not look that way early on. And it may be some Russell Westbrook hero ball every now and again. The Mountain West and its member schools, as currently comprised, have released a statement. The Air Force Academy is included in this. They, along with UNLV, were the 2 teams that were being approached by other conferences to bolt from the Mountain West, both of them with reportedly sizable guarantees. They got a bag in today's parlance in order to stay, but they, along with the other members that were not being asked to leave the conference, the Nevadas, the Hawaiis of the world, are releasing a statement in unison saying we are together. We have signed pledges to remain with the Mount West and stay together, which is a great sign of solidarity. And I believe that those schools have every intention of supporting the Mount West and being loyal to the Mount West for as long as they possibly can be. But it reminds me a little bit of the Alliance. Remember the Alliance a couple of years ago? There are forces at play right now in college athletics that no matter how loyal you are, things change drastically at the drop of a hat. Look what happened with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. Thought they were getting along just fine, and now the Pac-12's trying to stab the Mountain West in the back. So this isn't a legally binding agreement, I don't think. But I take them at their word. I think they do want to keep the Mountain West together. I do think they feel like it's been a good partnership over the years. The forces I'm talking about are out of their control. And we'll see how they can stay together, if they start poaching, or if this Pac-12 Mountain West merger that just keeps sticking out and making the most sense of anything that can ever make sense in today's modern age of college athletics. See if that happens down the line. But Air Force, UNLV, did they flirt? Did they think about leaving? We don't know. But they're staying with a bit of a financial windfall along with it. Speaking of Air Force, I am about to head up there because there's some women's soccer tonight. Air Force opening up the Mountain West season against Colorado State. That should be a good one. That will be on the Mountain West Network if you are so inclined, Jeff Bennett and myself. And then if I don't talk to you there, I'll talk to you tomorrow at 3. Enjoy your evening.